You think you know a person. You see the stage lights, the easy smile, the incredible talent, and you assume that's the whole picture. For decades, stars like this were practically family, invited into our living rooms through our TVs. They were symbols of joy, of comfort, of a time that felt just a little bit simpler. And Roy Clark was one of the brightest stars in that sky. He was a master musician, a hilarious comedian, and a TV host whose grin was as legendary as his guitar playing. He seemed like an open book, a man who gave everything he had to the world. Or so we thought. When a beloved star passes away, the silence they leave behind is quickly filled with whispers. Stories start to bubble up, ranging from sweet memories to wild tales of secret lives. And in the case of Roy Clark, who passed away in 2018, one story in particular began to spread across the internet. It was a bombshell, a story that promised to rewrite the legacy of the man everyone thought they knew. It was a tale about a garage on his Tulsa estate, a garage that had supposedly been locked for decades, its secrets hidden even from his closest family. The story claimed that after his death, his family finally unlocked that door, and what they found inside would shock the world. This wasn't just old junk, it was a hidden box, containing a story of private pain that stood in stark contrast to the public joy he shared with millions. But here's the thing about legends. It's hard to tell where the real person ends and the myth begins. The story of the sealed garage is a great one, full of mystery and emotion. But is it true? To figure out what was really left behind, we have to look at the man the world knew, the myth that grew after he was gone, and the incredible, verifiable truth of a life that was, in its own way, more amazing than any story could ever be. For millions, Roy Clark was the smiling face of country music, a genius musician whose laugh was as contagious as his guitar solos. He was the co-host of Hee Haw, a show that reached 30 million people a week at its peak. He was just Roy. But the story that surfaced after his death painted a very different picture. It was a story of a weathered, locked garage door that held the key to a secret Roy Clark. It was a story of a key turning, a door creaking open, and the discovery of a hidden life. What was supposedly found inside that garage would challenge everything you thought you knew about the man. Today, we're not just going to debunk a myth. We're going to uncover the even more incredible reality of his life, his legacy, and what was actually found after he was gone. Before the myth, there was the man. Roy Linwood Clark was born in Meherrin, Virginia on April 15, 1933. And it seems like music was in his blood from day one. His dad, Hester, was a semi-pro musician who played banjo, fiddle, and guitar, filling their home with the sounds that would define his son's future. And young Roy wasn't just interested. He was a prodigy. At only 14, he was already playing gigs with his dad's band, and by 15, he'd won 2 national banjo championships. That second win got him a spot on the Grand Ole Opry, a stage that would one day become his second home. But Roy was never just a banjo player. He was a true virtuoso, a multi-instrumentalist who could seemingly master any stringed instrument. He picked up guitar, mandolin, fiddle, you name it. For a while, though, he was torn. He was also a gifted athlete who tried his hand at baseball and even had a short boxing career. But in the end, music won out. His early career was a grind. He played in clubs and on local TV shows in the D.C. area, including one hosted by a young Jimmy Dean. In a now famous story, Dean actually fired Roy for being late all the time, a tiny bump in the road for a career that was about to take off. He hit the road with rockabilly star Wanda Jackson, which landed him a deal with Capitol Records. His first album, The Lightning Fingers of Roy Clark, dropped in 1962, and the title wasn't kidding. The music world was officially on notice. But it was television that made Roy Clark a superstar. In 1969, he and Buck Owens became the co-hosts of Hee Haw. The show was basically a country version of the hit comedy show Laugh In, packed with corny jokes, goofy skits, and most importantly, jaw-dropping musical performances. Critics hated it, but America loved it. For more than 20 years, Hee Haw was a TV institution, making Roy one of the most beloved faces in the country. His on-screen personality was just pure joy. The pickin' and grinnin' segment became his signature. Buck Owens would say, "I'm a pickin'," and Roy would flash that huge, infectious smile and say, "And I'm a grinnin'." That TV fame launched an enormous career. He had hit records like the bittersweet ballad, "Yesterday When I Was Young" and "Thank God" and "Greyhound." He was one of Johnny Carson's favorite guest hosts on The Tonight Show, which proved he was more than just a country artist. He was named Entertainer of the Year by both the CMA and the ACM. In 1976, at the peak of the Cold War, he even did a sold-out tour of the Soviet Union, proving that his music and warmth could cross any border. He officially joined the Grand Ole Opry in 1987 and was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2009, an honor that brought him to tears. This was the Roy Clark everyone knew and loved, a man of incredible talent, genuine warmth, and a bottomless supply of good cheer. He lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with his wife of over 60 years, Barbara, and was a pillar of the community. They even named an elementary school after him. This image of a happy-go-lucky, open-hearted superstar is exactly what makes the myth of the sealed garage so powerful and so shocking. It suggested a dark, hidden story behind a life lived in the sun. When Roy Clark passed away on November 15, 2018, the country music world mourned a legend. Tributes poured in, celebrating his career, his genius, and his kind heart. But then, a different story started to spread through social media, forums, and YouTube. It felt like something out of a movie, and it was absolutely captivating. The story usually went like this. On Roy's property in Tulsa, there was one garage that was always locked. For decades. It was a place of mystery that even his wife, Barbara, wasn't allowed inside. It was Roy's private space. After he died, the family, needing to settle his estate, finally opened it. Inside, behind some old amps and awards, they supposedly found a smaller hidden door. And behind that door was a simple wooden box. This is where the story gets dark. Inside the box, the legend claims, was a collection of items that told a devastating secret. There were supposedly heavily redacted military records pointing to a traumatic, unspoken service in the Korean War, something no official biography ever mentioned. The story alleged that Roy was part of a special entertainment unit that witnessed horrors he could never talk about. Then, there were the audio tapes. Not music, but secret therapy sessions Roy had recorded himself. On these tapes, he supposedly confessed to crippling anxiety, deep loneliness, and the crushing pressure of keeping up his happy public persona. He talked about the trauma from the war, the loss of friends, and a darkness he hid behind his famous grin. The man who was a grinnin' for the world was in secret a man in torment. The final piece of the alleged puzzle was an unsent letter. It was a long, angry, heartbreaking letter to a powerful Nashville executive. In it, Roy supposedly unloaded on the phoniness of the industry and a deep personal betrayal that had haunted him for years. It was a raw cry of pain from a man who felt trapped by his own fame. The story was perfect. It was tailor-made to go viral. It had every element you could want: the locked room, the hidden box, the shocking reveal of secret trauma, and the tragic contrast between a beloved. Beyond cars, his real treasures were his instruments and memorabilia. In 2021, his widow, Barbara, and his manager, Jim Halsey, loaned a huge collection of his belongings to a museum in Claremore, Oklahoma. Fans could see his famous banjos and guitars, a pair of his hee-haw overalls, his shiny stage costumes, and his many awards. These items don't tell a story of hidden pain. They tell the story of a life spent making music and entertaining people. The sealed garage wasn't a real place. The real treasures were never locked away. They were the things he shared with the world every time he stepped on stage. We love digging into the stories behind the stars. If you enjoy this kind of storytelling and want to see what we investigate next, take a second to subscribe and click the notification bell. It's the best way to support what we do. To really get Roy Clark, you have to toss out the myth of the tortured artist and look at the well-documented reality of a driven, complex, and genuinely good man. The real story isn't about hidden trauma. It's about overcoming shyness, dedicating himself to his craft, and having a deep love for his family and fans. One of the most revealing things about him was that he was incredibly shy as a kid. Growing up around Washington, D.C., he loved country music when it wasn't cool. He said in interviews that humor was his defense mechanism. The jokes and the big grin were initially just ways to feel more comfortable on stage. But what started as a tool became a real part of who he was. He found out he loved making people laugh just as much as he loved playing music. It wasn't a mask, it was a bridge he built to his audience, and his work ethic was insane. Those lightning-fast fingers on hee-haw came from thousands of hours of practice. As a teenager, his hands would sometimes bleed. He was a perfectionist, always pushing himself not out of misery, but out of a deep love for the music. His father taught him to never turn your ear off to music until your heart hears it, and he lived by that, exploring everything from bluegrass to classical to jazz. Off stage, Roy Clark was a man of many interests. He was a skilled pilot, getting his license back in 1956 and owning several planes over the years. Flying was his escape. In 2011, he donated his beloved Piper Tri-Pacer plane to the charity Wings of Hope, which raffled it off to fund life-saving medical transport for kids. He said that while the plane meant a lot to him, helping kids meant a whole lot more, and that was just who he was. Philanthropy was a huge part of his life. He raised millions for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, where an entire floor is named for him. For 9 years, he hosted a celebrity golf tournament in Tulsa that brought in stars like Bob Hope and Mickey Mantle to raise money for the local children's hospital. He chose to move to Tulsa in 1974 simply because he fell in love with the city and its people. His personal life was incredibly grounded. His marriage to his wife Barbara lasted 61 years, from 1957 until his death. They built a family and a life far from the chaos of Hollywood. This partnership was his anchor. Far from being kept in the dark about a secret garage, his widow, Barbara, was key in creating the museum exhibit that celebrated his real life's work. The man behind the smile wasn't a man in agony. He was a man who worked hard, loved his family, gave back, and found incredible joy in sharing his talent. That's a much more inspiring story than any tale of a dusty box of secrets. The fact that the sealed garage story is still so popular, even though it's not true, says more about us than it does about Roy Clark. So why are we so drawn to these stories of secret pain? First, we love the drama of contrast. Public figures like Roy Clark, who seem so happy all the time, can almost feel two-dimensional. A story about hidden struggles makes them feel more human, more relatable. The idea that the man who was a grinnin' was secretly in pain makes his public performance feel even more heroic. It satisfies our need for a hero who has overcome unseen battles. Second, these myths make us feel like we're in on a secret. Believing the story of the locked garage makes you feel like you have a deeper understanding than the average fan. It's like a little conspiracy theory that turns you from a passive viewer into an insider who knows the real story. Third, these stories often serve as a warning about the dark side of fame. The idea that huge success can lead to private misery is a theme we see again and again. The myth about Roy Clark's secret struggles fits perfectly into this narrative. It reinforces the idea that fame comes at a price. It's a way for us to process our own complicated feelings about celebrity culture. And finally, it's simple. We love a good mystery. When a person dies, their life story is left unfinished. We have the public record, but we don't know what was really going on inside. Myths like the sealed garage provide a neat, tidy ending. The hidden box is the perfect plot device. It literally contains all the secrets. It's a clean resolution to the messy, unknowable reality of a person's life. The myth persists because it's a great story. But in looking for these dramatic fictions, we sometimes miss the quieter, more inspiring truths. What do you remember about Roy Clark and Hee-Haw? Did you ever hear the myth of the sealed garage? Let us know in the comments below. We read all of them, and your stories are a huge part of what makes this community so great. In the end, what was found after Roy Clark's death wasn't a box of secrets in a locked garage. It was something much bigger, and it was never hidden. What was found was a legacy left in plain sight all across American culture. It's in the grooves of his records, in the reruns of Hee-Haw that can still make you laugh, and in the memories of millions who watched him with their families. The real treasure is found in the hearts of the musicians he inspired. It's found in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where a school bears his name and a children's hospital is better off because of his generosity. It's found in Branson, Missouri, a town whose entire entertainment scene he helped create. And it's found in the real, tangible proof of a life well lived, a car collection sold to the public, and an airplane given to charity. The story of the sealed garage is tempting. It offers a simple, dramatic answer to the life of a complicated man. But it's fiction. The truth is, Roy Clark wasn't defined by private pain. He was defined by the joy he gave away so freely. That famous smile wasn't a mask. It was a window. And what we saw through it was the real light of a man who loved what he did. The world wasn't shocked by the discovery of his secret torment because there was none. Instead, we're still in awe of his public, undeniable, and lasting gift. And that is a legacy worth more than any secret a locked box could ever hold.